Look, I opened this jar of rotten baby food, and well, a butterfly came out.
Now I got a question
Oh,
for you. How did you decide on
absolutely.
comedian? How did you decide on comedians and elevators? Because it looks like you're in a
Ah,
teleportation device that's for Star Trek that's going to end up sending you to another location, So you seem to be coming in and out of existence. So I'm just curious how you came up with that.
welcome to the Comedians in Elevators podcast. I've got my guest, John Luksetich. I messed it up. Well, John, you know what? Introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself.
My name is John Luksetich, but people call me Luksutich or
Ah,
Luksetich or any number of those, and sometimes they just call itch.
how about that? Now let's scratch it. So you ready to get started, John?
Sure.
Listen, to my regular listeners, I know you don't like when at the beginning of these conversations I ask you to subscribe. None of us like it. I don't like saying it. I don't like it being in here. But it's frustrating. You know what else is frustrating? It's also frustrating when I look in the back end of the YouTube channel and I see that 56% of you that watch frequently haven't yet subscribed. And I know this because I see it in the comments section. You say things like, I didn't know I didn't subscribe. And that's actually what fuels the show. Basically, it's like you're making a donation to the show. So that's why I ask all the time, because it enables us to build and build and build. And we're going for the long term here. Hit the subscribe button and we'll continue to build this show for you. That's my promise. Thank you to all you guys that do subscribe. It means the world to me. All right. So the main topic of the podcast is to compare and contrast the comic versus the comedian. So I define the comic as any person telling funny jokes versus the comedian who's a funny person telling any jokes. So John, would you agree that you start as a comic and evolve into a comedian?
I would agree with that wholeheartedly.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, then let's start with the first question. So it's about the role of persona in comedy. So how much of the comedian's voice is a character versus the real self?
That's a good question. I would say the real self is kind of what comes through with any comedian over time. I mean, we've seen some of the greatest comedians of all time, and what do we know about them is things from their personal life, self-deprecation. So, and they do it in a certain way that they weave it all into the other jokes. So fortunately or unfortunately, I find that those tend to be some of the better comics, such as Eddie Murphy. You go back in time with certain other ones that you get to know a little bit about them.
Okay. So does authenticity matter or is illusion part of the magic?
I think it's both. I think sometimes you start out with some authenticity and then you go to the other side. It's like I may do a joke about being an old man, and sometimes I can do that because I am an old man. But to do that in such a way that people would go like, "Oh, yeah, he doesn't mind making fun of himself." Like I tell people I've been mistaken for Willie Nelson, so I like to be on the road again. And one comedian was bombing one night, and I just start laughing. He goes, "Willie Nelson likes it," and I just said, "Yeah, that's right, I do." The only
And
thing is,
that's the way.
I
Uh-huh.
didn't inhale like Bill Clinton, so that's the difference. I've never inhaled. So,
Wow, fair enough, fair enough. Okay, so
yeah,
punching up versus punching down. So where do comics versus comedians stand on this? So let me put it in some historical
yeah,
context.
yeah.
Did a jealous medieval prince become the first
Beady,
comedian
beady,
by
beady, beady.
killing the court jester?
That's a good question. I really can't answer that, but I do know about people punching up and punching down. And one of my favorites was George Carlin. I would say he punches up because he took a dig at the people that are in control. And I like George Carlin. He'd say, they don't call it a club for nothing. It's a club, that's the thing. And you're not invited.
Yeah,
Because we're not in
exactly.
that wealthy club, the club that runs it. So I think punching up is more respected in society. Punching down is too easy. I was a teacher for 32 years in junior high, so I would not punch down. However, I'd have some students that always thought they were so great at comedy, so I would let that go for a long period of time until it got to the point where they're really punching down on other students and they want to challenge me. And finally, we'd have a caveat, two things. You can't cry to the principal, no matter what happens, and you can't
Mm,
do racial jokes. And so we go
mm,
at it. After 5 or 7 minutes, I realized that they were starting to get bothered because the kids were laughing at them more than me.
mm.
So I started pulling back and saying, "Hey, you're doing a great job. We'll call it a draw." And it's save face for them. So I think you should
How
always
about that?
punch up. Yeah, just for the safety of society. We got enough people punching in general in this society. So, so we don't
Right.
need any
I'd say
punching.
they perhaps a lot of people are just punching wildly. They're really not going up or down. They're just swinging and swinging for the fences, right? And going
Yeah.
horizontal into the distance there. So is the
Yeah.
audience agreement with the comedian a form of permission or alignment?
Yes. I think if an audience agrees, there's a certain element of where they'll allow you to go to an area that maybe you normally wouldn't, long as you do it in a manner that's I'm trying to think of the word to do that. You can touch on areas that usually you wouldn't with an audience if you get them in agreement with you to start with. But if you start trying to go for something that's really going to be controversial from the beginning, you're going to lose them.
Okay.
You know,
So
like
how about that? Right?
yeah.
Controversial. So how about cultural translation of comedy? So how do jokes that work in one country bomb in another?
Oh, that's for sure. And like if you go over to Spain, where my ex-wife is from, certain jokes in America are not going to carry over to Spain. You know, they're not the same type of government, not the same belief system. So they'd be looking at like, you Americans are stupid.
Yeah, there's definitely something else going. Do you have a joke that would not work in Spain? I don't know if you dare to say or
Um, I think I had one in Spain they tried to tell me it was about Clinton back then, and they tried to do
uh,
sound effects doing Clinton, and the guy was trying to make a joke about it, and myself and other family members were listening to him, and unfortunately he was bombing because we in America are looking at it, there's nothing funny about it. But th their sense of humor, they were laughing at it. So political
oh,
jokes sometimes don't transfer over as well. I mean, they would try to make fun of like a Trump or a Biden, and it can work, but sometimes not quite as well as it does here when you're making fun of your own president and stuff. So making
that's
fun of
very
more than,
interesting.
yeah,
Yeah, that's very. So he made a joke about American politics in Spain.
yeah.
Wasn't funny in English, but it was funny in Spanish.
I know that's what's so funny about it. It was an
Interesting.
oddity, but because the way he did
Okay.
it, and it
Right.
was so silly that I think we've heard it too many times here back in the Clinton Monica Lewinsky days.
Got
So I,
it.
I
Got
think
it.
it was overplayed so much that by that time we're like, okay, you guys are behind the times. You need you need to come up with some new ones. But if we try to make fun of their political leaders, they
Yeah.
make fun of their own political leaders, and we're sitting there. There's a joke about the prince over there. I think it was one of the princes lived on a yacht, and supposedly my ex-wife's father was saying he's seriously saying how poor he was. He couldn't even afford beer. Yet he's living in a
Mm,
yacht that's worth
right.
millions of dollars and has all this money, but he says he's very poor because the media says he's poor. And I'm like, this a joke or is it real? He
Right.
was serious.
Exactly.
I go,
Yeah.
so we use that in America, and they're going like, yeah, that is pretty good.
I guess you don't have to pay property tax on a boat. I'm not sure, just registration.
Well, I think if
So,
you stay in certain areas of the water, it depends upon which side of the country, whether you're in France or Spain or not.
right? So is truth the meaning of facts?
Truth, the meaning of facts. Truth is a really interesting concept. What is truth?
That's why I asked because I
Yeah.
would say that it is the meaning of facts.
Yeah, but here's the other question for you. I'm going to do an existential question. What
All
are
right.
facts? Are facts subjective or are they objective? And it depends on, we're talking about scientific facts. Are they only grounded in the locale of the earth where we're observing things? We think the theory of gravity, the idea of gravity, the idea of the laws of motion from Newton, are they just local laws? Are they universal laws? We say they're universal, but we don't live in the universe. We're making those judgments from the earth. So are they really universal laws?
That's right. That's why I asked this question because I see this as an equation where truth plus meaning equals facts. Would you agree?
Truth plus meaning, and then again, is meaning subjective?
Meaning most I would argue that they're both subjective, truth and meaning, but when you put them together,
Yeah.
do you get the image of objectivity, therefore facts?
No, I think facts are a misnomer. I think that facts can always have a certain, I hate to say this, but they have their own subjectivity even when we try to nail them down. Although we would say things, I'll give you an example, this is from the source of it. Today, people often get carried away with the source saying, well, it was said by so and so, so it must be a
Mhm.
fact. So I'm kind of derailing a little bit, but bear
No,
with
not at all. Yeah,
two plus.
it is a
Yeah,
fact that it was
yeah,
sourced, but
yeah.
is the thing that he said a fact?
Right. So I give the example and hope your audience doesn't go crazy on me, but if 2 plus 2 equals 4 and Adolf Hitler said it, but 2 plus 2 equals 5 and Mother Teresa said it, which one is true?
There you go.
And they go, but you're mentioning Hitler. I go,
Yeah.
hey, I'm just saying if he said it by accident and it was a fact, does
Yeah.
that negate the fact because he's a crazy guy who's a
Yeah.
suicide, you know? So we kind of look at a source, and do you know Edward Bernays? Maybe you do. He was the father of propaganda, and he was able to convince 4,900 and some doctors to convince us that breakfast is the best meal of the day. Why? Because it increased egg and bacon sales. So you
Hmm.
could say, are we really looking at facts or well-manufactured consent?
I'll agree with that. So are comics more universal while comedians are more culturally specific?
Good question. I would say comedians can be more culturally specific to the area where they're at. However, a good comedian can use whatever their stick is and apply to any culture if they can find a universal theme. Give me an example. Relationships, whether they're here in China or in Russia, there are similarities and there are differences. And you can play in the similarities of husband and wives. They'll like it. And then you point out a little bit of differences of how an American husband would respond to this situation versus a Russian versus a Chinese. You'll get laughter because of the comparison of the husband's behavior. So you can
Hmm.
use culture for comedy by contrasting it.
All right. So crowd work versus crafted work. So if comics riff like influencers in the comments section and comedians perform like in reaction videos, where's the sweet spot?
That's a good question. Crowd work is very essential because if you can't do crowd work, then you're not going to be able to use those rare moments of improv are going to really make a difference with the way the audience reacts to you. You want to bring the audience in, yet you still want to be able to do your routine and get in the timing and what you need to have in it. Most people don't know how well a timed routine is, how
Right.
important it is. They don't understand, oh, this person's practiced over 100 million times, but that's because that's why it looks natural. So I think it's a
Hmm.
delicate balance. It's kind of like socialism and capitalism. Everybody wants to say, you can't have socialism, the whole place will fall apart. You can't have capitalism, everything will fall apart. But the truth of the matter is, some of the best governments have both. And I use the illustration. I go, do you really want to have a Zuckerberg prison, a Bill Gates highway system, an Elon Musk water system where all these are controlled by private entities in which you can't drive, eat, drink, go to prison, whatever, without having some corporation tell you what to do? On the other side of the coin, do I really want to have bread and cars and everything manufactured by our government? I mean, with the efficiency they have, with the high-speed rail in California, which is not going to be high speed anytime soon. So you see that that's the whole idea of comedians is now I'm equating it to governments is you need a balance of the two in order to have a good routine.
All right. So what happens when a comic leans too much into crowd work?
I think they lose their ability to keep flow because sometimes they get so caught up in it. How do they bring it back? How do they bring back that structure? We always want to have freedom and structure. Again, people would say you've got to have the middle way.
Right.
It's that
So
balance.
that's right. So what about when a comedian gets heckled?
When a comedian gets heckled, he has two things to do. He can panic and get upset. As a former junior high teacher, I can tell you the second you get upset, you lose the crowd, you lose the class. Junior
Hmm.
high students are much worse than any crowd that you have in a bar.
Mm.
Middle school
All
kids are
right.
the worst. So if I cannot respond to them in a way that they expect me to respond, then usually they end up being much better in the classroom. For example, as a middle school teacher, I've had 3 times where students left rubbers on my desk.
Mm.
And so each time I responded with kind of humility and comedy because, without getting too, because it can't say who did it or everything. So I just look at it and I go, oh, how many people knew this was my birthday? I did want to get some balloons today, but I need larger ones for my birthday. You
It's
forgot to
pretty
put that.
good.
So it was pretty good. So the kids would
Yeah.
laugh. Don't you know what that is? I go, do you know what it's in? Because the kid that did it would say, you don't even know what it is. I go, the question really is, do you know what it is?
Yeah.
And the girls,
Not bad.
ooh, he got you. So
Not
it's
bad.
fun
Not
to
bad.
play. It's fun to play off your students and then adapt that to a situation that you're in with comedy.
All
So
right.
now I got a question
So
for you. How did you decide on
absolutely.
comedian? How did you decide on comedians and elevators? Because it looks like you're in a
Ah,
teleportation device that's for Star Trek that's going to end up sending you to another location. So you seem to be coming in and out of of existence. So I'm just curious how you came up with that.
Yeah, you got that. So it's evolving. There's going to be more to come, but as a kind of a marketing model, I wanted to have something original, but yet, that makes sense at the same time. So,
That's pretty
yeah.
good. Now, how did you come up to find out if I was a comedian or not? That was my question.
Well, so here's the interesting part. So we're going through the metaverse here is using LinkedIn as my one of my sources
Okay.
for discovering people. Their algorithm is pretty on point.
Really? They
Yes,
pictured
it
me.
is.
I'm an actor. I'm on IMDb. I mean, I've done some kind of, but I don't normally, most people don't know that. That's kind of
So we're,
interesting.
yeah, I think we're at that point where AI is starting to get kind of good. So
Hmm. I guess I just am funny looking, I guess. I don't know.
well, maybe we have something. So very important question. Very important question. Advertising and self-promotion. So who advertises themselves more, the comic, the comedian, or the magician? You know that place where you're not conscious and you're not sleeping either? That's your power bill to the electric company. Right here. I want us to be here with free energy, where the Wardenclyffe Tower meets the Eiffel Tower. But that's not where we are. We are here, where you've got the utility and you've got residential solar. Between these two, we know which one saves you money. This is where we can go in the meantime. But this is where I want us to be now, and this can be done now. So let me deputize you to represent DOSE, Department of Solar Efficiency, and let's get on the podcast and get the message out today. See you soon.
Ah, I think a comedian has to advertise themselves a lot. I think so. I think if you're not going to advertise yourself, I mean, I'm going to equate it to doing independent films. You can have a distributor and nothing happens, but if you advertise yourself, you're more likely to get an audience. In today's society with social media, we want to know you, the comedian. We don't need to know your jokes as much as who are you? If
Right.
we like you, we're going to laugh at you. I mean, we're going to laugh at you already because you look kind of weird instead in front of this fake Star Trek portal thing. However, I did have something with that that's not actually comedy, but truth. I did a cable show for 15 years. It's kind of like Art Bell and George Norrie. Today, people call it Joe Rogan, where I actually had a gentleman talking about teleportation and time travel. He supposedly was from the CIA, but was no longer in it, and supposedly he traveled through time.
Mm,
This is his comment. He was part of Montauk and the Philadelphia experiment. So, yes, I've had the real. I didn't have the aluminum foil hats, but I had all the craziest people you could imagine. Name a certain conspiracy, and I probably had it on my show.
nice, nice. Well, there you go. So we got something in common because we are teleporting to the future. We'll say that.
Okay.
So is self-promotion seen as selling out or is it necessary for survival?
It's necessary. I think it is, and I think if you do it with integrity, and I know it seems funny for a comedian, but if you do it with integrity, I think more people are going to actually like to come to you. If you're sitting there and doing it as if you're a pompous, and everybody else is a peon and you're the aristocracy of comedy, then I think people can't relate. But those people that seem to be more relatable seem to have people following them through self-promotion. Some people are self-deprecating, are extremely funny, and we kind of
No.
enjoy watching them and listening to them. Or some people just make comments about society they punch up that we laugh at. George Carlin was great at it. He just made fun of these certain things. You go, we all can agree on it. But he didn't punch down at the audience very rarely.
Hmm. Absolutely.
So
All right. So censorship,
self-promotion. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So censorship and offense. Does a comic avoid offense while a comedian courts it to prove a point, like a magician?
Yeah, I think you need to court it. I think comedians do. And I think
Okay.
avoiding it just allows it to, the elephant in the room starts to grow. Because we know certain areas. I have another friend that's a comedian. He has to avoid certain topics. Because
Hmm.
if he's in Arizona, and then when he comes to California, certain topics he's avoiding, and he's a comedian. Yet at the same time, if he can skirt it in a certain way, I think it makes for more comedy because being able to laugh at each other actually creates a society where we can get along better than if we're sitting there not wanting to confront some of the oddities of our life. You know, I find friends of different cultures, different sex, different countries, when we tease each other, they actually like it. If we can
Right.
do it that way, we know that we're just kidding. Seinfeld was great at that. They can make fun
Yes.
of things in a way that you didn't get upset at him, even though today we'd say that was racist. I go, but actually, he wasn't. It was just on the borderline, or that was homophobic, but not quite. And I
Right.
think that was the way that you can win a crowd over without upsetting them. So,
All right. So who survives better in the cancel culture environment? The comic, the comedian, the magician, or the mudslinger?
I think a comedian can survive if a comedian knows how to find that balance. I think you have to know when to pull back, but I think so. And I think cancel culture, to be quite honest with you, I think cancel culture is canceling itself.
Yeah,
So
hopefully.
I think what happens within cancel culture is you start having it's almost like the snake's eating its own tail because
Hmm.
it gets to a point where you start doing it, then where do you stop? You know, right now they're having, we know right and left wing, right? Well, the left was always acting lately as the cancel culture, but I'm old, so it used to be decades ago, the right was doing cancel culture for things you said. So it's this pendulum. And now, after some recent events, now they're trying to sit there and say they want to ban certain things from the left online. So where's
Hmm.
it going to stop? You're just catching the riding of the waves. And so I think if you're able to realize that and be able to find a delicate way of weaving in and out of it, you'll find out you're going to last through the whole thing. Because usually what happens is when the whole society is going one direction and you can't talk about these topics, then that's the comedian outside who's able to bring up those topics in a very creative way that ends up establishing himself away from the lemmings going over the side of the cliff. And so to be that comedian always on the outskirts of one side or the other side gives you an advantage over other comedians who are just trying to ride the wave. This
Mm,
person's
very.
trying to stay. Yeah. Anyway.
No, that's a great point. That's a great point. So, speaking of riding the wave,
Yeah.
timing and delivery, science or art? So, do comics rely more on structure and comedians more on rhythm and emotion?
Wow, that's a good question. I would say I would say comedians need timing very much so. You have to know how to structure the joke and how to carry it through. So there is a rule of three sometimes. And as a filmmaker, I make films too. There's a rule of three. You do things two times the same way. The third time, the audience expects it again, and then you twist it. So
Mm,
doing that surprise, we kind of anticipated. I don't know why rule of three works, but it often does. Watch a comedian, you'll see certain things they'll do in groups of three, and they'll twist it on the third one. Now that's not always,
exactly.
but it's
Right.
quite common.
Yeah,
And we
that
use
is a joke type. That is there's a
yeah,
formula. It's called the list of three, right? You say
yeah.
two things that are normal, and the third thing is absurd in the other direction.
Correct. And we do it with filmmaking. So I'm bringing film because we make independent films that are kind of borderline comedy, drama, whatever. And they're the
Hmm.
same type of thing. I'm going to give a real quick plug here, but it's funny. We have a film coming out where my daughter has Down syndrome. And so I didn't want to do the stereotypical feel-good film where it's like, oh, poor person, we got to help them. So in this story, she's kidnapped by a handicapped hitman, a hitman who can't talk. He's deaf, and
Oh,
so and he doesn't talk, so no one can do. He uses a phone to do his talking or sign language, and so she has a stuttering problem. So because of her witnessing, he's supposed to kill her, but instead he ends up training her. So she becomes the first ever Down syndrome hit woman.
wow. And so what? That's very interesting. So what? Why did he do that?
He did it because he found a connection to her he didn't have with anybody else because she had a problem with being touched and she had a problem with speech like he does. And he doesn't
Right.
like being touched either. If you watch The Professional, it's kind of like The Professional
Yeah.
meets Spy Kids. It's a
Right.
dark
Right. So
comedy, but we're not having real killing. She kind of
sure.
helped bring a heart to the hitman, but the comedy is the contrast to the two.
Right.
And she
So
has all
does
her, yeah, go ahead.
does the hitman get exiled from his network?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And then the two of them get captured, and she's got to call in. And this is the funnest thing for her friends. She's got these 6'5", 6'7" autistic and Down syndrome boys and girls. They're, or, men. They're huge, and so
Hmm.
they look like they're giants. And she calls them, and about 20 of them come down to the office where they're held hostage. And she gets a phone call out. So then, when it looks like they're gonna be killed or taken away, these kids all descend on the place and beat up the agents. So
That's
for
pretty
them,
cool.
Yeah, for them it was the funnest time. And it's like, did we choreograph it? No. Did we know what the dialogue is? No. Is it in the script? No. That's the fun of it.
Yeah.
We just let them have fun with it. Just don't hurt the actors too bad.
Pretty good. Sounds like you got the structure to with freedom at the same time, which is really
Yeah.
nice.
And
Love to
that's what
hear
we
it.
need nowadays. So we do hit on some of the stereotypes. One of our other films, we have a lady who's Black Lives Matter falls in love with a MAGA guy. And she goes to the cafe in the void, the heaven, and she meets Bob Marley, Gandhi, and John Lennon. And she comes back down, the two of them together change the world. Now, these two shouldn't meet in this universe today because everybody's mad at each other, but we wanted to show how they could be brought together.
All right. I like it.
Yeah. So, yeah.
All right. So
I
laughter. Yeah, love it. So laughter versus applause. So are comics chasing laughs and comedians chasing applause breaks or a primetime Emmy that validate the message?
That's a good question. I would say neither. I think a true comedian or a comic, what they should strive for is excellence and something that's true to the craft. Because if you're striving for laughter or you're striving for awards, then you're always going to be chasing your tail because even if you get it, you'll never be content. But if you're
Mm,
doing it because you're making someone's day better and you're connecting with the audience, and I've heard this with a comedian and with musicians, when they get out of themselves and actually try to connect with somebody and see that they're not worried about the laughter, but they can see they're enjoying it, you can tell because sometimes quiet doesn't mean that they're not enjoying it, it means they are enjoying it because they're
mhm,
not heckling. So I think we need to strive for excellence within ourselves to connect to the audience and let them tell us afterwards and not worry so much. You're worried about how many laughs you got. You're like, really, counting laughs is going to make your routine better? No, it's just being real in the moment. You're going to find that you're gradually the audience is going to like you because you're not worried about that. Dave Chappelle had one of the greatest moments he talked about at the Apollo when he bombed there and he's dragged off stage and he didn't get the last, but it made him fearless. After
mm.
that, he went up and he wasn't worried about the applause or anything. That's when real freedom comes.
No, that's definitely, there's a point there. So comedy as commentary. When does a comedian cross into being a philosopher or a preacher?
I think he does it the first time he does comedy if he's good. I mean,
Okay.
we're putting philosophy out the second we start telling a joke. We may not realize it, but you are.
Hmm.
I'm sure you
So,
tell a joke. Take a look. How does it
yeah.
work? Is it about marriage? Is it about politics? Is it about, what is it about your work? Well, you're already making commentary. I can do about teaching all day long. I'm making a commentary and teaching, but it's funny and it's true. Like I'll give a quick example. I have teenagers and I have one young lady that came up to me and she's in tears over a boy who was talking to another girl because in junior high, the breakups are very quick. And the makeups too. It's like the girls are all wanting a relationship. The guys don't know what they're doing. So she's all in tears. She's coming up to me saying, "Oh, this boy's so cute, and I don't know. He's talking blah, blah, blah." And I look at her and I go, "I just got a little piece of advice for her." She goes, "What? What should I do?" I go, "I want to tell you, junior high boys are like buses. Every hour there's another one that comes along." And she goes, "Mr. Al is not funny." And I go, "It's kinda." And she goes, "I guess it is."
Oh, you know your audience. So if you made that work, then you got that
It
on
worked.
point. That's for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, so it's
Awesome.
good to get that. You can use it as a way to heal the divide in people. If you use comedy right, it's one of the best ways of bridging the gap between people and stuff. So I think right from the beginning you can use it as a positive tool.
All right. So you ready to enter the multiverse?
Sure. Go
All
ahead.
right, here we go. Board game Zoomcast, play versus performance. If comedy were a board game Zoomcast, are you competing as the colorist, adding tone, mood, and shading, or the Foley artist, building punchlines with soundscapes and timing?
Oh, wow. I'm trying to think about that. There's neither one really concerns with content. It's more about the aesthetics, isn't it? Because both of them are dealing more with technique than it is the actual content. I
Yes.
would have to say the one more with they both kind of blend together. I can't say that you should exclude one by the other, trying to say that it's like trying to say which is more important, your feet or your hand? Well, my
So it's a,
feet. No, my hands. It's
but see,
both.
here's the thing is we're playing a board game. You have to choose your piece.
Ah, I don't, you're making it hard for me. I got to choose between ice cream and cheesecake. I don't know.
That's right. You got
Yeah.
to.
Okay, well, if I have to choose, I'll choose the second one you mentioned, and I can't remember exactly. It was with the
Foley artist.
Foley artist, yeah. I'll choose
Yeah.
a Foley artist. However, both of them are essential. I'll say that.
All right. So does comedy work better when it's painted vividly or when it's orchestrated sonically?
Oh, Lord. Okay, we'll do sonically. I mean, it is more of an auditory thing. You're putting me in a choosing decision, and then I
Yes.
don't like to make choices when I like to find a way to bring two things together. It's like trying to say that, well, do you think you want to die today or die in 5? No, no, that's not a good example. But anyway,
You're right. You're right. No, if you're being tortured, do you want to die today or in 5 years, right?
exactly, exactly,
All
yeah.
right. So,
And this is kind of
so
torture right now. No,
is it now? Well, we're about.
I'm just
Well,
teasing.
let's get to the good part. So we actually have a torturous tradition here on the Comedians in Elevators
Sure,
podcast, where the
sure.
previous guest has a question for the next guest,
Oh, I
and the
like.
previous right. So the previous guest was Diddy, and her question was, "If humor is holy, do you agree?"
If humor is holy, do you agree?
Hmm.
Oh, I mean if it's holy like in faith and spiritual,
Well, that's those are the words. So you got to guess: is it a joke or is it
I
a
would
real question?
say I would agree with that. If humor is holy, I would agree with it. I
Okay.
often thought that we need more faith-based comedy. Seinfeld was close to that, and the reason why is because we need to find a way to get together and laugh at each other,
Yeah.
and do it in such a way that it builds faith together than separation. So I think comedy used to cause more division is not going to be good in the long run. We had enough division the way it is, but comedy used to bring us together and laugh, that's a good thing.
All right.
So it has a spiritual faith base to it. So
All right. So, last question. Legacy. Who gets remembered? Will the comics tight five survive time, or will the comedian's cultural point of view be more timeless?
I think the cultural point of view, and George Carlin is one of those, I would say, or Seinfeld, their point of view definitely people remember their
All
cultural.
right.
Yeah, that's
All right,
for sure.
John. So, where can everybody find you online?
They can find me online at There Is No Box Studios with my partner Randy Kent. We have a studio that we're making films. So if you want to do comedy in a film, or maybe you're doing a set and you want to be a part of it, and we're doing feel good, faith-based films, not Hallmarkish, more realistic, films that challenge our perceptions. But as I say, we want to create a bridge. We're trying to bring people together and
All
peace,
right.
love, and freedom. So our There's No Box Studios is all about that. So if that's something that you're in line with, please contact us, and we'll definitely get you on a bridge to bring people together. I,
Awesome, John.
yes.
Well,
Cool,
thank
cool.
you so much for being my guest. And for everyone, please like and subscribe, and we will
Yeah.
see you in the next one.